Welcome once again to SoCo Chat, a podcast where we hear directly from county leaders, discuss the latest news, and talk about all things concerning our beautiful corner of California known as Sonoma County.
Welcome to SoCo Chat. I'm your host, Matt Brown, Deputy Communications Manager for the County of Sonoma, filling in for Paul Gullickson. Thank you for joining us. We have as our special guest today, Sonoma County Supervisor Lynda Hopkins, who just last week was elected to serve as chair of the Board of Supervisors for 2025. But before we get to Chair Hopkins, here's our trivia question for the week. Roughly how many people in the North Bay get their water from the Russian River? You're welcome to give us a rounded number. We're not looking for an exact number, but if you know, call us at 707-565-2242 or email us at publicaffairs@sonoma-county.org. If you're correct, you'll win a special prize, a one-year pass to all of Sonoma County regional parks. This pass was provided by our friends at Regional Parks, and we'll award it to the first person who calls or writes with the correct answer. So with that, let's move on with our discussion. Welcome, Supervisor Hopkins.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, thanks for being here. I want to start by noting that our hearts, our thoughts are really with our fellow Californians this week down in Los Angeles as they're dealing with these horrific wildfires. I know this horrible tragedy down south is really, it's bringing back memories for us here in Sonoma County. For you, I'm sure, from the 2017 Tubbs fire, the Walbridge fire, the Glass fire. Knowing what our fellow Californians in Los Angeles are going to be dealing with in the next months, years to come as they recover. What are your thoughts? What's going through your mind?
I mean, I feel like what I'm experiencing is sort of grief rage, right? There is a sense of PTSD, a sense of, why can't we do better, right, as a community? Because this keeps happening. First, it happened to San Diego, then it happened to us, then it happened to Paradise, then it happened to Lahaina, and now Los Angeles. Two communities essentially burned to the ground. And the images are so familiar, the melted hubcaps, kind of rivulets down driveways, the places where, you see just kind of nothing except for a bird bath or a garden gnome, right? Are the only things that have survived such a high heat inferno through folks' homes. And it just, it does renew my desire and my commitment to continue to advocate at the state and federal level for money that's on prevention. I mean, look at how much this disaster is going to cost us, and think about if FEMA had instead invested that in prevention, right? And improved emergency alert and warning systems, and making sure that we have the latest and greatest technology to fight these blazes, ability to coordinate better between local, state, and federal firefighters out on the lines, being able to track people in real time. I think there's still so much that we could do. And in the meantime, I mean, my heart just goes out to these communities. And we are sending resources from the County of Sonoma. I like to tell people, it's a really crappy club to be in, but we are members of it and we take care of each other, right? And so we're all going to be sending, policies that were helpful, mutual aid from different departments. We, of course, our fire districts up here have sent down firefighters and engines and strike teams, and we're all in this together, and we're going to hopefully come out stronger and help them too.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. And I do want to get back to emergency management in a bit, but it has been a pretty memorable start to the year for you. On January 7th, you were sworn into your third term as supervisor. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
And then immediately after that, you were elected by your peers to serve as chair for this coming term. 3 days later, you were chaired the first board meeting of the year, or the annual priority setting meeting for the year in Sebastopol. That meeting had a really large public turnout. It was great to see a lot of people out there, more than 2 hours of public comment, people really telling the board what they would like to see you prioritize for this coming year. Were you surprised by anything you heard that day?
I think it's what we've been hearing from the community all along, but there is such a power to having a room full of people who are there to share their priorities and speak their minds. And I was just so humbled and inspired, honestly, by 2.5 hours of public comment and people just really coming, wanting to make their community a better place. We heard a lot about supporting, our immigrant and undocumented community. We also heard some, various land use concerns that will be also, discussed by the board later on in the year. And we also heard, some concerns about homeless students, the LGBTQIA community in light of, potential federal actions. And so it was really powerful and I think very reinforcing to hear our community's values distilled and, and brought forward before the board. And I'm really grateful to every single person who took time out of their super busy days to come be with us on a Friday morning.
Absolutely. Well, at that meeting, the board passed a resolution pledging support for the immigrant community. Among other things, the resolution prohibits the use of county funds, personnel, and other resources to enforce federal immigration laws unless required by state or federal law. You helped author that resolution in light of the new incoming administration in Washington, the federal administration. Why is that a message that's so important for the community to hear?
That's a great question. And I also want to give credit to Supervisor Corsi, who was really sort of the driving author of this resolution that we approved. And, I want to be clear that we cannot, sort of dictate or like we can't do anything that's illegal, right? And we can't sort of tell the sheriff what to do because he has, constitutionally endowed powers. So that is not what this resolution does. What this resolution does is send a very clear signal of our values and our intent to, as much as humanly possible, protect sensitive data of the clients that we serve. We serve many members of the undocumented community, through Health and Human Services, through the CDC, and housing vouchers. And we are actively looking at how can we keep their information safe? How can we make sure they continue to receive services? Because what we don't want is for them to become, afraid to interact with government, and then unfortunately, right, not have those social safety nets that are so important to everyone in our community to be able to access. So I'm proud that we took that step. I'm also really proud that we pledged $500,000 to go out with, a notice of funding available to our community-based nonprofits to see if they have any ideas of how we can support the immigrant community, the refugee community, the undocumented community in the years to come.
Great. Well, staying with that topic, you mentioned there's going to be an immigrant services update to the Board of Supervisors. I think that's being agendized for April 22nd. What do you hope to hear from that update?
I think that one of the challenging things is we have so little data about this population that is absolutely just an integral part of the fabric of our community. And, so I would like to see, hey, what has been the level of access to services? And then, in light of the Trump administration and the fear of, potential immigration actions, do we actually see, unfortunately, disenrollment? And if we see that trend happening, how can we respond to that to, again, ensure that folks have access to services? I think it's also really important to do resource mapping. We know that we have a paucity of immigration and deportation defense attorneys in Sonoma County. We just don't have enough to meet the need. And we especially don't have enough pro bono or low bono, attorneys who can provide these services. And so I'm really grateful that some of our CBO partners have stepped up and have provided legal, legal services workshops all around the county, including actually just over the weekend up at the Sea Ranch. So we are trying to, and I would love to support their efforts in getting the word out to the community and ensuring that folks have access to information.
Absolutely. Well, I know reaching out and supporting our most vulnerable in our community is going to be a priority this year going forward. Also at that meeting on Friday, the supervisors shared their priorities or their ideas for this coming year. You mentioned the revisiting the county's right to farm ordinance, particularly in light of the overwhelming defeat of Measure J on the November ballot. What are you thinking about that?
What I would love to do is cement the role of agriculture and really support our local food security in Sonoma County. I think that the overwhelming defeat of Measure J was a signal that we are still a community that believes in and wants and supports local agriculture. So how can we protect that right to farm going forward in Sonoma County? I was a community-supported agriculture farmer and sold at farmers markets for more than a decade here in Sonoma County. Just last night, I was trying to get my goat out of a place that she was not supposed to be. She escaped from the pasture, got herself caught, sort of tangled up in bamboo, finally got her back half an hour later on the phone with different county employees trying to prep for the board meeting. So I actually love living that kind of rural urban life. And I feel very lucky, that I have a herd of goats that I can tend and the ability to grow my own food. And I want to make sure that that right is there going forward and that we support our farmers. Because damn it, I want to be able to buy local butter, local eggs, local meat, local vegetables, because we have the beautiful ability in Sonoma County to produce so much here, right? We are not just a city made out of cement. We have so many beautiful agricultural lands, some suited for grazing, some for row crops, some for more, orchard or vineyard. And I just want to make sure that that's able to continue into the future.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. Well, back to disaster preparation, emergency management. You mentioned that you'd like to see annually we have a fire preparedness update, and that's usually around June. You mentioned you'd like to see that moved up to April. We could even do it in February, given how early the fire seasons are starting these, nowadays with climate change and everything. You also mentioned you'd like to see a flood preparedness a workshop. Tell us a little bit more about what you'd like to hear from those from Department of Emergency Management.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there is always a conversation when there's any kind of event around emergency alert and warning. And I definitely got a lot of feedback from constituents with our most recent flood, which really came out of nowhere. It was a very early flood. Typically, you don't get floods, in November, and that's what we experienced. And you typically also don't get floods of the Russian River when the creeks are empty and the laguna is empty. So we had a situation where we had a tremendous capacity to absorb, water from a storm without the river flooding, and yet the storm was so great, and the sort of rain came so hard and so fast and was so unrelenting that the Russian River actually reached flood stage. And so I think just trying to get parity of emergency alert and warning across our different disasters. An example is we also had a tsunami alert that actually never even came into existence. It turned out that maybe there was a 10-centimeter wave, I believe, that was sort of detected from this earthquake, but certainly nothing that would threaten folks. And yet we had emergency alert and warnings go out, and we did actually, evacuate our coastal parks. And so, not having a similar response for low-lying areas of the Russian River is a conversation that I want to have. And I really appreciate the leadership of the Department of Emergency Management and Jeff Duvall, because he acknowledged, in the past, we had very seasonal trailer parks in the lower Russian River where, folks would come and they would camp there for the summer. Well, now the cost of living is so high that that's really our workforce and affordable housing in the lower Russian River are folks who live full time in RVs and trailers, unfortunately, in the first places to flood. And so I really want to make sure that, we have resources and we have notifications that are going to go out. Even if it's a minor flood, they deserve to have, that warning as early as we can provide it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, similar topic, flooding on the Russian River. Today's board meeting had a big item on that concerning the FEMA flood maps, right? These seem to have sort of caught a lot of people by surprise that live on the Russian River. But let's be clear, this is a federal decision that could restrict the ability of some property owners on the lower Russian River to rebuild after a flood. What are your thoughts about this? And is there any hope that the county could perhaps amend these maps with some new analysis and data?
Yeah, I supported the board action to actually go out and conduct a study of the lower Russian River to see if, in fact, the FEMA maps were accurate. Because I had property owners coming to me and saying, look, my property never flooded, even in the 80s with a flood of record, right? I've been dry. And so can you explain to me why I'm in this map? And it might just be that, honestly, FEMA got it wrong. So we want to make sure that the data is accurate. The other thing that we need to do is, because, this is a crushing blow to our lower Russian River community. If you own a commercial business and this flood map just made your use legal non-conforming, you cannot actually rebuild your business if more than 50% of it is destroyed. And so that means that something that you have poured your life savings into, that is your business and your livelihood, suddenly feels like it's potentially valueless, if we were to experience a fire or a flood or even just, an act of God or just an individual structure fire, they wouldn't be able to rebuild. And so I'm working with Permit Sonoma, and under our public safety and environmental justice elements that will be coming back to the Board of Supervisors later this year, we will be having conversations about policies that we could adopt to support those business owners. An example is Safeway in Guerneville. It's like the only major grocery store in the town, and that is actually, now classified as legal nonconforming. So if, Guerneville Safeway disappeared, it could not be rebuilt. And what happens to a town if you don't have, a major grocery store? That's a big problem.
It'd be a food desert, exactly. So yeah, no, I'm looking forward to more conversation around that in this coming year. Another topic that came up today at today's board meeting was development impact fees. This concerns how developers pay fees, and it also concerns how affordable housing is in Sonoma County, which is frankly a major problem. You said you'd like to have a state of housing discussion sometime this year. What would you like to hear from that?
I think that many members of the public who commented at today's Board of Supervisors meeting said it best. This is a crisis, and we need to act like it's a crisis. We need to respond like we do during disasters, during a fire or a flood, when we are able to cut through red tape and respond quickly in real time. And even though everyone agrees that we're in a housing crisis, still, it just feels like the wheels of government are moving so slowly to address this. So I think that the unanimous action that the Board of Supervisors took today to waive development, impact fees is going to be a step in the right direction. But it's not the only thing. We have also, passed some tenant protections last year. We have also partnered with the city of Santa Rosa on the Renewal Enterprise District. And I would just love to get kind of a, state of the county's housing kind of a conversation, and potentially even invite some of our partners like Generation Housing, who's compiled quite a bit of this data for the county, to share information on where we are, where we're going, and hopefully a roadmap for how to get there as soon as possible.
Great. I'm sure there'll be more to come on that one as well. Last question, and we've covered a lot of topics just in this brief amount of time. Is there anything else that you're looking forward to this year, this coming year, as chair of the board? Anything else, big topics that you can see coming up in the next 12 months?
Well, I feel like my theme is community engagement, and also customer service, recognizing that our residents, deserve and demand services from government, and that we really need to focus on providing those basic services, whether it is, responsiveness to broken roads, right, potholes, all of those kinds of things, responsiveness to homeless encampments where we can potentially, provide services to the folks who are living there, and then also enforce some of the ordinances that the county has passed, in order to sort of draw a line in the sand and say, well, you can't actually be here, camped along a creek and polluting the creek and, creating public health hazards. So I really believe that we need to listen to the community and work with the community and partner with the community. I think that in many ways, what happened in November, which, newsflash, the election didn't go the way that I hoped that it would go, was a call to action and a call to arms. And what I mean by that is, it showed that people are frustrated with government. Okay. And how do we change that perception? It's by making government work right here. It's by answering the phone when someone calls. And that's actually a gift in this day and age. I mean, you try to call, Verizon or something like major corporations, right? You're going to be on a telephone tree for at least half an hour before you maybe talk to someone who's a live human being. I feel like getting back to human interaction, solving people's problems in real time will go a long way to saying, hey, you know what? Government does have value. We are public servants. We exist to serve you. And so, I want to remember that. The other sort of, call to action that I see is that unfortunately, Washington, D.C. does not share our values in Sonoma County. I will unashamedly stand up for undocumented people, for immigrants, for refugees, for women, for the LGBTQIA community, for some of the groups that we know have already been targeted by the Trump administration, even in the campaign ads that, led to his election. And so I think that at the same time that we need to, be responsive to the community, understand what might be, a growing frustration with government. We need to stand strong for our values, and we need to take care of each other. And I think that the more that we get together in person to do that, the more that we come together as a community, create community gathering spaces, appreciate the diversity and, diversity in perspectives as well as culture that exists throughout Sonoma County, the better off we're going to be as a community. And you know what? They can be a mess in DC. They can be arguing and, fighting and just, making fun of one another. We're going to do better here. We're going to be civil. We're going to learn to compromise. We're going to, move forward initiatives that matter to people. And so that's my goal, try to be that good example of government and get back to community engagement, customer service.
Well, that's great. We look forward to partnering in that effort and helping with that community engagement in the year to come, and speaking directly to the public, like here on SoCo Chat. We'd love to have you back maybe at the 6-month mark to see how things are going and check in. That would be great.
Sounds great. I'm in.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here, Supervisor Hopkins. We really appreciate it. And we know that you already have a coffee mug from your last visit to SoCo Chat, but if you'd like to have another SoCo Chat swag item like a water bottle or a hat, we've got some great options for you to take home today for being a guest here. And to our listeners, we'd also like to give you a chance to take away a special prize. We're giving away a 1-year Parks Pass to the Sonoma County Regional Park System, thanks to our friends at Regional Parks. All you have to do is correctly answer our trivia question for today. Our question is this: in round numbers, how many people in the North Bay receive their water from the Russian River? If you know, If you know the answer, call us at 707-565-2242 or email us at publicaffairs@sonoma-county.org. If you're correct, we'll send you the Parks Pass. Also, if you have comments about this or any other segment or have a suggestion for a topic for a future SoCo Chat discussion, please email us at that same address, publicaffairs@sonoma-county.org. Thank you all. We hope you continue to follow SoCo Chat on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, and of course on YouTube. See you next time, and thanks again, Chair Hopkins.
Thank you so much.